Picture the Supreme Court, its marble columns looming in the fading light, a symbol of justice and stability in uncertain times. This building has witnessed some of the most pivotal moments in American history, and today it stands at the heart of another. As storm clouds gather over Washington, the nation holds its breath. The air is thick with anticipation, and a sense of unease settles over the Capitol. The stakes could not be higher, a nation on edge, waiting for a decision that will shape its future. Today, September 9th, 2025, the Supreme Court has delivered a historic verdict, striking down former President Trump's sweeping tariff plan. The news breaks like a thunderclap, sending shockwaves not just through the halls of power, but across the globe. Markets react instantly, world leaders issue statements, and ordinary Americans wonder what this means for their daily lives. This isn't just about economics, it's a test of presidential power, a question of checks and balances that touches every American's wallet and job. On the stock exchange floor, traders scramble to adjust. In factories, workers worry about job security. At grocery stores, families check receipts, hoping for relief from rising prices. The tariffs, originally intended to protect US industries from foreign competition, instead led to higher prices for everyday goods, disrupted supply chains, and provoked swift retaliation from America's trading partners. Cargo ships sat idle at ports, store shelves emptied, and the cost of living soared for millions. After years of heated legal and political battles, the Supreme Court's decision forces the nation to confront a fundamental question. Who truly controls America's trade policy? Is it the president, wielding executive power, or the Congress, representing the will of the people? The answer will shape the balance of power for generations. For businesses, the ruling could mean billions in refunds for tariffs paid over the past years. Executives breathe a sigh of relief, and small business owners hope for a fresh start. The decision offers a lifeline to those who struggle to stay afloat amid rising costs and uncertainty. For the government, however, the ruling presents a looming fiscal crisis. Billions in lost revenue must be accounted for, and officials scramble to revise budgets and forecasts. The Treasury faces tough choices, and the nation's economic stability hangs in the balance. The impact of the ruling will ripple outward, from bustling factory floors where workers hope for job security, to the boardrooms of multinational corporations recalibrating their strategies. Every sector of the economy will feel the effects as the nation adjusts to a new reality. At family dinner tables across America, parents discuss what the decision means for their household budgets. Will prices finally come down? Will jobs return? The Supreme Court's ruling isn't just a legal milestone, it's a turning point for millions of families hoping for a better future. The Supreme Court hasn't just interpreted law, it's changed lives. Outside the courthouse, emotions run high. Some celebrate, others protest, but all recognize the gravity of the moment. The judiciary has stepped into the spotlight, reminding the nation of its power and responsibility. As the country braces for what comes next, the judiciary now stands at the center of a national debate over power, trade, and the American way. The conversation has only just begun, and the decisions made in the coming months will define the nation's path forward. In this new era, the balance between executive authority and judicial oversight will be tested as never before.
To grasp today's decision, we need to rewind. Trump's America First tariffs aim to punish unfair trade and revive US manufacturing. Using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, the administration claimed foreign trade practices were a national threat. Critics argued only Congress can set tariffs, as the Constitution states. The debate became a clash over presidential authority, swift executive action versus constitutional checks. Businesses and lawmakers warned of dangerous precedent if a president could impose tariffs unilaterally. This fundamental conflict over separation of powers set the stage for a Supreme Court showdown. The tariffs became a test case for the limits of executive power.
The legal fight began in the lower courts, where the first shots in this high-stakes battle were fired. It started quietly, with a handful of lawsuits, but soon grew into a nationwide legal movement. Across the country, thousands of business owners, large and small, banded together, filing lawsuits and speaking out. They claimed the tariffs imposed by the administration were not just bad for business, but outright illegal, threatening their livelihoods and the broader economy. Their central argument focused on a key law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. According to the businesses and their lawyers, IEEPA didn't give the president the sweeping authority to impose tariffs on such a massive scale. They insisted that only Congress, as the branch closest to the people, had the constitutional power to tax and regulate trade. In a series of dramatic rulings, federal courts across the country agreed with the businesses. Judges declared that the administration had overstepped its legal bounds, delivering a major blow to the government's case and sending shockwaves through Washington. Facing a string of defeats and mounting pressure, the government refused to back down. Determined to defend its actions, it quickly appealed the rulings, taking the fight all the way to the Supreme Court, the nation's final arbiter of constitutional questions. The stakes could not have been higher. Billions of dollars in tariffs hung in the balance, threatening to disrupt global supply chains and send shockwaves through the stock market. The case also raised the specter of a constitutional crisis, with the very structure of American government at risk. When the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, it set the stage for a historic showdown. The nation watched as the highest court prepared to decide a fundamental question: who truly holds the power to shape America's economic destiny? In the courtroom, the government argued for broad executive authority, claiming the president needed flexibility to respond to global threats. On the other side, business leaders and their attorneys insisted that only Congress could impose taxes and regulate trade, as the Constitution intended. The justices faced a stark and historic choice. Should they uphold sweeping presidential power or reaffirm Congress's exclusive authority over trade and taxation? The answer would have far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in Washington. The outcome of this case would not only decide the fate of the tariffs, but also define the separation of powers for generations to come, shaping the very foundation of American democracy.
In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled the president overstepped his authority. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that IEEPA doesn't let the executive impose broad tariffs, only Congress can do that. The ruling immediately invalidates the tariffs and opens the door for businesses to seek massive refunds. Treasury officials warn the government could owe up to $1 trillion. Dissenting justices argued the president needs flexibility in foreign affairs, but the majority drew a firm constitutional line. The decision reaffirms Congress's power over trade and sets a precedent for decades to come. The balance of power has shifted permanently.
The decision sent shockwaves through the economy. Relief for some, anxiety for others. Consumers may see lower prices as tariffs vanish, easing inflation. For businesses, especially small ones, the end of tariffs and potential refunds are a lifeline. But the government faces a fiscal nightmare, refunding up to $1 trillion. Processing these claims will take months, straining the Treasury. Politically, the ruling upends the narrative. Supporters hail free trade. Critics decry judicial overreach. The economic and political fallout will shape America's future.
This isn't just economic, it's a political earthquake. For Trump, it's a stinging rebuke. For opponents, proof his policies were reckless. Yet Trump may use the ruling to rally his base, blaming the courts for blocking his agenda. Congress now faces pressure to reclaim its constitutional role in trade. Lawmakers must decide pursue free trade or new protectionist laws. The era of presidential dominance on trade is over. Congress must act. This decision will dominate the political debate for years.
On Main Street, businesses finally have clarity after years of tariff turmoil. For countless small business owners, the uncertainty of shifting trade policies has been a daily challenge, impacting everything from inventory costs to hiring decisions. Now, with a clear ruling in place, shopkeepers and entrepreneurs can plan for the future with renewed confidence, knowing that the rules of the game are, at least for now, more predictable. The end of tariffs and the promise of refunds could spark new investment and hiring. Factories may ramp up production, construction projects could resume, and local shops might finally expand their teams. For many communities, this means more jobs, more opportunities, and a sense of optimism that's been missing for years. The ripple effect could be felt across towns and cities as businesses reinvest in their people and their products. Globally, America's trading partners welcome the ruling as a win for rules-based trade. Countries that rely on stable trade relationships with the U.S. see this as a step toward rebuilding trust and cooperation. International markets, long wary of sudden policy shifts, are now cautiously optimistic that a new era of predictability may be on the horizon. Leaders in Europe and Asia hope for more predictable U.S. policy and less trade tension. They're eager to move past years of uncertainty and focus on long-term partnerships that benefit all sides. For many, this decision signals a willingness to engage in dialogue rather than confrontation, opening the door to new agreements and shared prosperity. But caution remains. Officials warn new tariffs could return under different legal justifications. The legal landscape is complex, and some fear that loopholes or new interpretations could bring back the very uncertainty this ruling aimed to resolve. Businesses and governments alike are watching closely, aware that the story may not be over yet. The world is watching to see if the US will truly reset its trade approach. Will this decision mark a genuine shift toward collaboration, or is it just a temporary pause in ongoing disputes? The answer will shape not only America's economic future, but also the stability of global markets. This case was never just about America. It's about the principles that govern global commerce. At stake are the rules that ensure fair competition, open markets, and mutual respect among nations. The outcome sets a precedent that could influence trade policy for years to come, affecting businesses and consumers worldwide. A move toward negotiation and away from unilateral tariffs could benefit U.S. exporters. Farmers, manufacturers, and tech companies all stand to gain from a more stable and open trading environment. With fewer barriers, American goods can reach new markets, supporting jobs and growth at home. The Supreme Court's decision opens the door to a new era in global trade, if the U.S. chooses to walk through it. The path ahead is filled with both promise and uncertainty, but for now, there is hope that a more balanced, cooperative approach to trade could shape a brighter future for Main Street and the world stage alike.
Legal experts call this a defining check on the imperial presidency. Dr. Evelyn Reed, constitutional scholar. This is less about trade, more about the architecture of our democracy. The court has drawn a line. Congress, not the president, controls the nation's economic fate. The ruling creates immediate fiscal headaches and forces Congress to act on trade. Will lawmakers step up and craft a coherent policy? That's the next challenge. This moment will be studied for generations, a reminder that checks and balances require vigilance. The debate over trade and executive power isn't over, but the terms have changed. America stands at a true constitutional crossroads.
The Supreme Court's decision is more than a headline, it's a turning point for the nation. By blocking the tariffs, the court reaffirmed that Congress, not the president, sets fundamental economic policy. The end of tariffs brings relief, but refunding billions will test the government's resolve. The economic landscape is shifting, with new winners and losers. Congress must now reclaim its role and craft a trade strategy for all Americans. This is a call for citizens to stay engaged. The future depends on it. The ruling forces a national reckoning on power, government, and America's place in the world. The gavel has fallen. Now the real work begins.